Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
AK-47.
Back to another.
Maybe most iconic gun name ever, or just gun. Hi guys, my name's Connor. I like to learn things. That's what we're going to do right now. The original link to the video, top of the description from Mega Projects. If I'm talking too much, you can just check it out. I'd recommend checking it out anyway. Preemptive, like, let's go.
So Mega Projects. This one is all about.
So I guess like it's just like super reliable. It might not be the most accurate weapon or the most sophisticated or you know top, but like it'll work. And that's what I think it's big. It's big advantages, but that.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mega Projects. This one is all about the AK-47, the terrorist's choice. Has there ever been a more famous, or rather infamous, combination of letters and numbers? The AK-47, or Avtomat Kalashnikov, to give it its official title, has become one of the most widely used pieces of weaponry on the planet, with between 75 and 100 million having been produced since 1949. That's roughly one
also, like,
for every 75.
I think it's just a cool looking gun, like the curved magazine to the wood and the metal. It just looks cool.
Million having been produced since 1949. That's roughly one for every 75 to 100 people on Earth. Sadly, this is a gun that has a nasty habit of finding its way into the most atrocious of conflicts over the last 70 years. Its rugged dependability has made it a favorite for many an insurgency, terrorist organization, drug cartel, and is today still used by countless governments around the world. This is the story of a gun that has changed the way we fight, and one that has brought power, prestige, and untold misery to millions. In terms of technological achievement, the AK-47 is in a world of its own. Never in history has a piece of weaponry been so mass-produced and so adored by so many. There's nothing flashy about it. It's just a solid, reliable gun that can often be bought for absurdly low prices with no questions asked. Envy can push people
World War II,
to extraordinary levels, and so was the case with the birth of the AK-47, or so the story goes. We've added that slight disclaimer there because, as with many of the heroic...
Hold on, sorry.
It can push people to extraordinary levels, and so was the case with the birth of the AK-47, or so the story goes. We've added that slight disclaimer with the birth of the AK... Envy can push people to extraordinary levels, and so was the case with the birth of the AK-47, or so the story goes. We've added that slight disclaimer there because, as with many of the heroic tales which tended to appear out of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, this one too has a slightly hazy, but still glorious backstory. The USSR was the undisputed king of twisting myth and reality until it was impossible to distinguish the two, and the legend that is the AK-47 is just that. Anyway, the story of the AK-47 starts during World War II. As the Nazis began rampaging across the Soviet Union during Operation Barbarossa in 1941, a few things were becoming clear to the desperate Soviet forces trying to halt the bulldozing blitzkrieg. Not only was the leadership structure an absolute shambles at this point, thanks in no small part to Stalin's purges during the 1930s, but the soldiers defending the motherland were hopelessly ill-equipped compared to their German counterparts. There are epic stories of Soviet forces charging German lines, sometimes with only a single gun for every 2 or 3 men, a situation that would have been inconceivable by the Germans. Quite remarkably, the Soviets held on and eventually began inflicting Hitler's first large-scale defeats. As they drove the Nazis back from Moscow and then St. Petersburg, the motherland had been saved, but their success had been...
That's freaking cool. Like, I'm not like a gun enthusiast. Like I've said this a million times. I have never even held a real gun before. Okay, shows you how much of a gun guy I am. I'm not, but I think I think I am fascinated just because I think there's such a cool piece. It's just I'm very interested in the engineering and evolution of weaponry, and that's what fascinates me so much. Rather than like me wanting to pew pew. So this looks like 4 Lewis guns, or what are they called? And I'm just used as AA guns, anti-aircraft.
Moscow and then St. Petersburg, the motherland had been saved. But their success had been down to numbers, the terrible Russian winter, and some awful military decisions by Adolf Hitler. Their technology, compared to the Germans with the exception of some of their tanks, was still incredibly poor. The Soviets had been hugely impressed with the German Sturmgewehr 44, the first successful assault rifle, which had been used with great success on the Eastern Front. In response, the Soviets quickly produced their version, the SKS, which was designed in 1944 but didn't enter service until the following year when the war was almost at a close. This was an upgrade on what the Soviet forces had been using beforehand, but it came with several limitations, namely its 10 rounds limit and the fact that it wasn't fully automatic. For the briefest periods, it was the standard issue gun for Soviet forces until it could be usurped by a gun that would eventually spread to all corners of the globe.
Guys, does barrel length equal accuracy? Like the longer the barrel, the more accurate it is? Just a question.
As far as contradictions go, the fact that the man who designed the most popular gun the world has ever seen was also a poet who wrote 6 books is certainly right up there. Mikhail Kalashnikov was born in 1919, the 17th of 19 children. During Stalin's deconstructive reorganization plans of the 1930s, he and his family were deported from their home in Kuya in southern Russia to Tomsk Oblast, which is further north. Once he was a teenager, he made his way back home and eventually began working in a weapons design bureau. In 1938, he was conscripted into the Red Army, first as a tank mechanic, but he rose quickly and by 1941 had attained the rank of tank commander. In October 1941, as the Battle of Bryansk raged around him, his tank was hit, and the young Kalashnikov was evacuated to hospital, where he spent the next 6 months recuperating. It was here, according to the glorious annals of Soviet Russia, that Kalashnikov overheard his wounded comrades complaining about the dire weaponry they were using compared to the well-equipped German forces. Then and there, he decided that he was gonna design a gun that would match his nation's enemies. Things did not exactly happen all at once. Once discharged from the army, he set about designing a submachine gun which was passed over by his superiors in favor of the SKS. His second attempt, which borrowed from the American M1 Garand rifle, was also rejected, but it forms the basis of his entry into an assault rifle design competition in 1946. Yep, that was totally a thing. His winning entry was known as the McJibbin, and it was this design that revolutionized everything.
I'm curious if this is like the first gun that took advantage of like using the mechanics of the gunshot to like reset something and put another bullet in. Or was that already a thing?
The weapon that Kalashnikov submitted in 1946 was known as the AK-1, with another variant referred to as, you got it, the AK-2. This was a gas-operated rifle that came with a curved 30-rounds magazine. Located above the barrel was a short-stroke gas piston, and the gun came with a breech block mechanism which closed the gun's breech, the end of the barrel, moments after it was fired. It also came with a rotary bolt, a small bolt that essentially locks the bullet in place just before firing, and a 2-part receiver. The receiver is firearm torque for parts of a weapon that house the internal action components such as the hammer, bolt, and firing pin. These 2 receivers would later be combined into one, a change which many attribute the weapon's famous reliability to. It also came with dual controls, meaning that there were separate switches for the safety and the fire selector. By 1946, Kalashnikov had a weapon that was streaks ahead of other submissions, but the design, it still wasn't quite right. In 1947, a new model emerged, sleeker and more reliable. Much of this new design was recommended by Kalashnikov's assistant, Alexander Zaitsev, who persuaded him to incorporate the 2 receivers into one and do the same with the safety and fire selector, which was now included on the same switch. This significantly simplified the design, while also making it much easier to produce quickly. The gun was trialed extensively with the Army, who immediately took a shine to it, and in 1949 it was officially incorporated into the Red Army. The Army, who immediately took a shine to it, and in 1949
But do you have to sacrifice some of the speed of the bullet? That right here. This is my point.
Trialed extensively with the Army, who immediately took a shine to it.
So as the bullet goes through, isn't some of the gas that goes through here would have been more gas to push the bullet out at the end and therefore a faster. So are you sacrificing slightly bullet speed for the mechanical?
In 1949, it was officially incorporated into the Red Army, where it became a media favorite. This is a weapon that has gone on to be adapted and tinkered with for decades now, but let's begin with the original version that appeared in the late 1940s. The first AK-47s weighed just 3.47 kilograms, 7.7 pounds, which is lighter than your average domestic cat, and it came with only 8 moving parts inside, which made cleaning and maintaining it quick and easy. Its fixed wooden stock measured 880mm in length with a barrel length of 415mm. It fired 7.62 by 39mm shells at a rate of 600 per minute. Now I know what you're thinking, with only 30 rounds per magazine, you're going to get through that incredibly quickly, and yes, you're absolutely right. Using the gun in fully automatic mode, the shooter would find themselves out of ammo in the blink of an eye, which is why it was generally used in semi-automatic mode. One of the brilliant last-minute design changes was to place the semi-automatic selector at the bottom with automatic and then safety above it, rather than in order of rate of fire.
Less than $300. Actually, that's probably about $300 because it's in pounds.
This meant that in a flash, and then safety above it, rather than in order of rate of fire. This meant that in a flash, its users could go from safety to the bullet-conserving semi-automatic mode. This brings us to a few other design factors that would make it hugely popular around the world. The gun's recoil was fairly mellow, as far as guns go, which meant that it didn't need to be used by a large, battle-hardened soldier capable of controlling its huge recoil. Its intermediate-range shells meant that it couldn't hit distances far away. Its effective range was 350 meters, but their lightweight nature meant that soldiers could carry more of them into battle. In any case, it was soon found that for use in urban fighting situations, it was much better to have something like the AK-47 rather than a more powerful rifle with a further range that required heavier shells and came with the kind of recoil that leaves a bruise. In short, the AK-47
is wouldn't something like the British tube, the Sten, be like the only pushback like in urban combat is that like wouldn't it be better to have like a submachine gun or like something with a shorter barrel, just because like in building areas the barrel might like catch something and then you could be dead, or you know what do I know, but
and came with the kind of recoil that leaves a bruise. In short, the AK-47, it was perfect for smaller soldiers fighting in close combat situations, and has even been referred to as being soldier-proof to demonstrate its ease of use. And this brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of this weapon. It's so light and so easy to use, it could even be fired by a child. And sadly, in some parts of the world, that's exactly what's happened. Over the years, countless images have emerged from across the globe showing child soldiers often gripping an AK-47. With their small stature, it's one of the few weapons that they can handle easily, and with an estimated 200 to 300,000 child soldiers operating around the world, it puts the weapon of the 20th century in a very dark light.
at first I was like, that's a really good. But like saying the first victim of a child soldier is the child's childhood. Yeah, but I think probably the death of the child. I get what it's trying to say. It just seemed more profound when I first read it. Maybe
of the 20th century in a very dark light.
Why am I critiquing that? I don't have a filter. Like my mind just says stuff. It's not my fault.
While we tend to use the blanket name AK-47, that's off.
Sorry guys, OBS Studio recording error there. We're good though. Only lost like I only had like 4 seconds ahead, so we're good.
And to use the blanket name AK-47, that's often not at all accurate. It's probably best to refer to them under the umbrella Kalashnikov family, as there have been countless variations along the way. Going through them all would no doubt be informative, but hardly riveting viewing, so for the sake of brevity, we're just gonna go with the highlights. The first major change came with the AKM, which appeared in 1959. This was an even more simplified model, which made mass production even easier. The overall weight was reduced by 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds, while the accuracy when firing in automatic mode was improved along with other minor reliability issues. It's thought that just over 10 million were produced in the Soviet Union until 1977. The AK-74 was introduced in 1974, surprise surprise, and again improved accuracy while also improving its effective range. That being said, 50% of the gun is exactly the same as the AKM, which shows that
a wooden magazine? I don't know what the difference is between a magazine and a clip. Is this a clip? Is this a magazine? I think a clip is a magazine, just longer, and a clip is shorter.
most changes
And a wooden clip magazine? Okay.
50% of the gun is exactly the same as the AKM, which shows that most changes were just smaller tweaks. The gun was first used by Soviet forces during the 1979 invasion of Afghanistan, where the CIA reportedly offered $50,000 for the first retrieved AK-74, which they were no doubt interested in studying. If you think things may have tailed off after the fall of the Soviet Union, well...
Imagine trying, failing at invading the Afghanistan. Imagine.
Think again.
They beat, hand it to Afghanistan, okay? They beat two superpowers. Kind of Vietnam as well, didn't they? 3 superpowers. France, I don't know if France is a superpower, but France, US. Did Vietnam ever fight a war with China as well, or no?
Russia has continued, may have tailed off after the fall of the Soviet Union. Well, think again. Russia has continued the evolution of the AK all the way up to the present day with the AK-12. This very much feels like a next generation AK with a firing range of 800 meters and significant ergonomic improvements, including a lightweight shoulder stock and better grip. It can also fire a broader range of shells that makes it more adaptable, but much of the essence of the gun has stayed the same since 1947.
Just before I forget it, there's something I heard in another video that explains a big difference between American and Soviet mentality when it comes to weapons. I'm sure this isn't an umbrella thing, but it's like, take Soviet jet fighter planes and American jet fighter planes. I'm not sure if this is still the case, but that American jet fighter planes tend to be much more advanced and super technical and a trillion parts to it, and you got to really know how to fly it and then use it. And if it's in perfect condition, then it's probably the best plane in the skies. But the Soviet way was that it's like a Soviet jet can sort of crash land a little, get completely dirty stuff fly in it, and some guy can just hop in and then just go again. Whereas an American fighter jet, if it gets one stone lodged into somewhere, the whole thing is unusable, and you have to repair it and stuff. So it's a approach of, maybe it's not great one-on-one when they're both working, but it's more of a quantity reliable aircraft or gun in this instance, compared to a more technical but very prone to little mishaps.
The spread of Kalashnikovs around the world has made them an extraordinary success, but also the bringer of death to millions. It is a gun after all. Now, if we want to think about the biggest military killers, it's easy to think about the atomic bombs that hit Japan, but those numbers pale in comparison to those who have died staring down the barrel of a Kalashnikov.
Yeah,
Exact
it doesn't
numbers
surprise
are,
me.
of course, impossible to gauge, but look at almost every significant or even small-scale conflict after World War II, and some variation of the Kalashnikov has been present. From the Vietnam War to the troubles in Northern Ireland, from Somalia to Yugoslavia, from the Congo to the Syrian civil war still ongoing, the Kalashnikovs have played a key role. Every year, it's believed at least 100,000 die of injuries inflicted by Kalashnikovs, or rather by the person holding the Kalashnikov, but that number could also be considerably higher. It's not surprising that these weapons developed an almost symbolic revolutionary aura to them, especially during the Cold War. Whether
Isn't the flag of Mozambique or Angola? No, Mozambique has a Kalashnikov like on its flag. I think Mozambique has a machete.
rebels were fighting the capitalist US or
No,
communist
sorry. I
Soviet
think Angola has a machete. It's not important.
actually during the Cold War. Whether rebels were fighting the capitalist US or communist Soviet Union, they invariably did so with Kalashnikovs. To give you an idea of just how important this weapon has been to some, Mozambique, East Timor, Zimbabwe, and Burkina Faso have all incorporated an image of it into their national flag. Further, around 50 standing
Burkina Faso
have all incorporated
No. Burkina Faso's flag is like, it's like half red on the top, it's half green on the bottom, with like a yellow star in the middle. Or a red.
Incorporated an image of it into their national flag. Further, around 50 standing armies around the world currently use Kalashnikovs for their soldiers. Nowadays, it's often not completely clear where the guns have even come from, because not only is it the most sold weapon on the planet, it's also the most copied. Its simplicity has made the design easy to replicate, and countries around the world are now producing their own versions. 20 countries currently, and officially, make Kalashnikovs, with China being the largest manufacturer, though it's not exactly clear how many.
Do guns kill people, or do people kill people? A gun is a very easy way to kill people. Why does it have to be one or the other?
This is a topic that regularly riles, but spare a thought for good old Mikhail Kalashnikov. Had he been born in the United States, he would likely have made a fortune from the patent of his design. However, being born in the Soviet Union meant that he never received any extra money for his design, and he continued to be paid the standard Soviet wage even after the gun became a global phenomenon.
Oh, did he regret making it?
It was not the matter that troubled him when he neared his death in 2013. In a letter to the Russian Catholic Church, he wrote, "The pain in my soul is unbearable. I keep asking myself the same unresolved question. If my assault rifle took people's lives, that means that I am responsible for their deaths." The AK-47 and its offspring are still causing carnage around the world, with cases of them being purchased for as little as $10. The going price is typically a bit higher, perhaps $100 to $300, but it's still ridiculously cheap for a hugely successful killing machine. Those selling guns often hide behind the statement that a person needs to make the conscious decision to pull the trigger, that guns don't kill people, people kill people. But with some of the poorest, most desperate people in the world readily supplied with Kalashnikovs and fighting in wars that external forces often tend to antagonize for their own benefit, it's a difficult ethos to completely align with. People are certainly responsible for killing other people, but does it have to be so absurdly easy?
Exactly. It's like, did guns create war to kill people? No. But if they didn't have this gun, yeah, I'm sure a lot less people would have been killed. So people kill people, but that doesn't mean that giving them a seriously easy way to do it isn't also bad. But I mean, it's an insight into the person he was, knowing how troubled he was by his invention at the later part of his life.
So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you've got suggestions for mega projects in the future, please do let me know about them in the comments below. I often look there to decide what we're making next. And thank you for watching.
You have so many channels. How do you... A new thing I learned, it has to be new. All right. Great video, guys, by the way. But let me just tell you two things, okay? So, all right. Holding down space
So if you've got suggestions for mega projects in the
Fast
future, please
forwards.
do let me know about them in the comments below. I often
You know the keys between the M key and the question mark / key? It's like the period and comma with the two like greater than equal to. Those go back frame or go forward frame by frame. They've been hugely helpful. I'm just trying to give a little tip. Love you all. Hope you guys are all doing well. I'd appreciate any answers to any of my questions and or any comments in general. I'd love to see them. It really means a lot. I want to tell you guys every now and then that just seeing conversations go on, even kind of when they get even unrelated to what my thing is, and you guys talking to, it really makes my day. It makes me feel really happy. So I just want to thank everyone who's commented, subscribed, liked, watched. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. All right. Bye, guys.